Rock in Rio, the 40th anniversary in September, which was unbelievable. It was really cool to reconnect again with Brazilian fans and just to be a part of Rock in Rio. I mean, I grew up listening to live albums and live performances from Rock in Rio from some of my favorite bands. Iron Maiden, probably one of the most famous ones of it, and I'm trying to blank on some others right now. But even before you become a musician, that's something that you've heard of and you know about, right? And to first years ago, we did main support for Iron Maiden at Rock in Rio, just to see what that was like, my mind was blown. I think, I must have been 23, 24 years old at the time. And it felt massive. And then to come back and do the 40th anniversary, headline it, and sell out our date. There's a lot of times in my career where I've been asked, like, when was the time that you felt like you made it, over the years? And I've never had a good answer for it. Just never have. There's never been a moment that I can say. There's been several moments I could say, oh, that was a big jump. Backcountry on TRL. I could even go back to Unholy Confessions getting played on Headbangers Ball was a huge thing. Metallica taking us out for the first time. There's just several things that I could point to as big steps in our career, but never at any of those points did I ever just kind of go like, oh, I've realized my dream, until we did Rock in Rio. And I'm being 100% honest. Everything just lined up really oddly for me on that. It's 40-year anniversary. I was turning 40 that year. I got to meet the guy who created Rock in Rio back in 1984, right before I was born, in September, and got to talk to him about all the different years that he'd been doing it, and all the different acts and the different sizes. I mean, back in the 80s, they didn't have the regulations that they have now for throwing on concerts, so they'd have 9 million people for the week there, like 300,000 people a day.
Jesus.
And now with all the regulations and scales, I think sellouts 100,000 with some extras. It was like 125,000 people there.
That's fucking wild.
Still huge. Don't get me wrong. But like when you think of that, like, and that chaos that must have been when they were first putting those on, they didn't have the infrastructure for that shit, but he just kind of went for it. And I love that, and he's built up this huge thing that, started in more rock, but I mean, the other nights was Travis Scott, Katy Perry. I mean, these are, huge pop acts, and Travis Scott, by the way, we got there early. So I ended up going that night that we got in and watched Travis Scott. I wasn't super familiar with his music, heard the stories of, his shows being a little rowdy and stuff for hip hop and stuff. I was like, oh, well, go check this out. Songs were awesome. The crowd was awesome, though. It was like a rock and roll crowd for a hip hop show.
Yeah.
They straight up had a mosh pit. They straight up had flares and stuff. Now I get why everyone gets upset, or some people will get upset about that because of the people who had passed at the festival and stuff. I won't get into all that. That's old news, and I'm very sorry for those who passed away over that. That's not to take away from that, but certainly not something we need to get into right now. But yeah, it was an entertaining, great show that he put on. And then again, just to be among those names, knowing that it's on every music channel, on their basic cable and everything like that. It's on all their MTV shit, playing all week, and it's a big footprint to have in Brazil. And to see that growth again it's just so humbling, truly. Like getting to headline the 40th anniversary of such a coveted festival in the world, to sell it out, play in front of that many people, feel the joy and the love that was there. Everything about it was just so humbling and so amazing. And even in the moment, like, I was so happy. We celebrated afterward. We had a great time. And it wasn't until I got home that I still can answer that question now and say that it was Rock in Rio. It was when I watched back our performance. Like we all got set the stream. The stream went out to, whatever, the world, mostly in Brazil or whatever. So after the fact, 2 days later, I was able to watch it myself. And I had tears of joy straight up while I was watching. Never had that before in my life. I've watched a lot of our performances before. There was a lot of mixed emotions. I was up here in my room right here watching on my computer screen or my studio screen. I got the Rev stuff here. I think you can see the guitar here. And I got my posters, and I still keep all my Rev stuff around in this room that I was watching it. So it was a lot of mixed emotions too, because it was, as much as I'm realizing this is like I'm living my childhood dream and this is insane, I'm missing my best friend still and my older brother, my mentor. A lot of mixed emotions in that, but still overjoy is really what I felt. And humility at the same time of just being like, holy shit, it was a weird time when I watched that back. I was very emotional. And it was exactly what I needed at that time. And as I said, tears of joy, just knowing that, finally putting myself into that perspective and thinking about when I was a kid, what I imagined being a musician was going to be like. It's really what I was trying to do. And that experience and so many others, when I'm being honest, have exceeded those expectations so many times over. I'm so grateful. And at the same time, I've never allowed myself to say like, wow, I'm living out my childhood dream. But I am. Like, that's a weird thing to, like, as early as I could remember knowing what I wanted to do, it's been an entertainer and music. And that's what I do for a living. And that's pretty insane. And not only that, I do it for on a certain level that allows me to play Rock in Rio on its 40th anniversary. It also just seemed like the stars were just aligning and all the coins in my life were landing on heads in September. It was really wild, guys. I mean, and to be able to, that was the other thing, watching that show, missing Jimmy, feeling the joy of self-recognition and self-worth, and seeing my brothers up there with me and realizing that aspect too. That's what I mean by having the dream to play in music and everything is more of a professional dream in a way, that's artistic too and creative, don't get me wrong, but it's more of a professional dream. I never imagined or never even thought differently, I guess, that it would be with my best friends in the world. Like literally the dudes on the stage are the guys that I call, that my son calls uncle, like, we've been through so much together. We truly are a family, and to see all of us firing on all cylinders. We got a little taste of it at Download Festival in London. That was another great performance where I felt like we were just all firing on all cylinders. And to watch Rock in Rio back and see all of my brothers and myself doing what we love to do together in front of so many of our fans. And just that energy, that experience, everything, the culmination of it all. I was filled with emotions, man. And I have to admit, I had a big smile on my face with tears running down, just being like, and I was texting everybody just saying, wow, like, it felt good on stage, but until I watched it back, it just, you don't see everything when I only have this one perspective, right? So it was super cool. And shout out to Rock in Rio, man. I mean, they always have an amazing festival every year, and honored and humbled to be a part of that. Absolutely. That was really cool.
That's awesome.
Dude, 40 years is a long time. It's got to be one of the longest running festival brands, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't.
That's a great question. I can't think of it.
I don't know anything in the U.S. that has that longevity, right?
No.
Because like Lollapalooza is probably the longest reigning I could think in the U.S.
Yeah, and that was in the
That's like
80s?
90s, right?
Was that? I thought that was late 80s.
Late
Could
80s?
be. I don't know.
I don't know.
We should probably look it up since we're on a podcast and talking about it. People probably are going to take this for like what we actually think. Yeah, no, it's one of the
That's a
longest
huge
running,
moment.
the biggest fest. Yeah, it's
a huge fucking moment.
And not even just, and like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I want to be thorough in this and pointing out and describing it correctly. It's not necessarily just the show. It's not that it's Rock in Rio. That was just a part of it.
Right.
It was the experience. It was the energy. It was the realization that I never allowed myself to see before. Because you always have blinders. I've talked to other guys on this show, other artists, females as well. I don't mean to say guys like that. I just mean artists in general. About how we are, like, and to get to a level of success, you have to keep going, right? Or it seems that way, at least in your 20s and 30s or whatever the case may be. It just seems like you have to put on the blinders and just keep going, but then you miss a lot of the shit along the way. Not the memories, but the feelings. I don't think you miss the memories. Well, some of us do who drank a little too much through some of it, but in general, you don't lose those memories. You miss the feeling, though, and the recognition of what you're doing along the way.
Yeah,
Sorry to
but,
interrupt.
if you always stop to
Pink
smell the
Pop.
flowers, you can't get ahead. So I think this is one of those cases where it's okay to stop and smell those flowers because,
Yeah.
Definitely.
I felt like it was the year to do that,
Yeah.
or the timing. I don't know. What were you gonna, Sam? Though you had some facts for us.
Yeah, so Pink Pop in the Netherlands is actually the longest running festival at 43 years.
Okay.
So
Shit.
but it concluded in 2012. So it looks like Rock in Rio will probably be taking that Guinness Book of World Records in about 4 years.
Pink Pop isn't a thing anymore.
It says it was from 1970 to 2012.
Wow, we've done a Pink Pop before, at least one.
I did too.
Wow, I
back
didn't
in
realize
high
that.
school.
Wow. No, you didn't.
There it is.
That's definitely definitely the line from the guy who didn't get laid in high school. But
God.
yeah, and then to tap out that's interesting though. Honestly, that Pink Pop, I didn't realize it had been that long, and that was one of the festivals he's done. Grass Pop is still running. We just did that, but maybe I was getting them confused. I didn't realize Pink Pop wasn't there anymore. Wow.